Traut euch.
Ich weiß nichts.
Sehr schön.
Hello, Tom. How was the play with Sidney Poitier?
Well, it was great. We worked together almost every day. I called him Mr. Sunshine because he was always in a great mood. Like he'd come in and be so pleasant every day. He was a real gentleman of the old school. There's only one day he got cranky. It's because they changed the scene on us, so it was like a whole new scene that we weren't supposed to do till the next week. But that's the only time I ever saw him get upset. Otherwise, he was fine. They wanted to reshoot one scene he had done where he's in San Francisco, he's a police officer, a detective. And I said, why do they want to reshoot the scene? He said, well, they think the suit looks too nice for a detective. He said, yeah. He said, but I'll tell you something. He said, you could go in there and get a Robert Hall suit right off the rack, for $70, and he said it would still look great. I go, yeah, I got you. And they did. And so they got a cheap suit, and it still looked good on him. Because he was just very handsome and, looked like the cover of Esquire magazine. But yeah, he was great, and I was surprised. I think he had just turned 60, or he was 60. We were running on the cement all day long, and I saw him jump over a car. And then we jumped onto a ferry boat as it was moving out, and he said, how are you feeling after yesterday? I said, well, we ran on cement and we jumped onto the steel deck of a boat. And I'm feeling it in my knees and my hips. He said, yeah, me too. I go, yeah. But a good athlete, and we were in great shape because we were running up and down mountains for 3.5 months, just running up and down mountains. Yeah. I saw him on the Academy Awards, and I think he's like 92 or 3 or something like that. And you forget, but he's got longevity. He's very healthy, and I've had so many other actors I worked with that have already passed away that were either younger than me or the same age, or just a couple years older, and they're just not around anymore. John Hurt, the girl that was the owner of the Cleveland Indians in Major League, Rod Steiger, Marcello Mastroianni, John Cassavetes, Suzanne Plachette, Richard Harris. It's starting to feel a little lonely. I don't know too many of the younger actors now. I guess I'm at the end of my career. Next question.
Noch jemand eine Frage? Ich komme mal zu dir. Du warst dran.
Hello.
Hi.
This sounds strange. I have a question. When you played Sergeant Barnes in Platoon, have you had some basic military training before the filming, or how was the filming itself? I think it must be very exhausting.
No, I had not been in the military, but I had wanted to be in the military. I wanted to go to West Point, the United States Army Military Academy, and I didn't get in. There were 2 other guys from my class that got to go, so of course part of those are political appointments too, but anyway, I got to play an admiral, a Navy chief petty officer, a Marine gunnery sergeant, a Marine master gunnery sergeant, a staff sergeant Barnes, a NATO general, a Confederate lieutenant general, second in command to Robert E. Lee, an army sergeant who becomes a captain of artillery in the Mexican army, Teddy Roosevelt as a colonel of cavalry in the Rough Riders in the Spanish-American War. Boy, I'm probably forgetting a couple here. But yeah, I've certainly done a lot of military roles, and those probably are my biggest fans, are Marines, Army, and Navy. But we did, for platoon, we did 3 weeks of training in the Philippines. We had a Marine captain who had done 3 tours of combat in Vietnam, and Oliver had, of course, been in Vietnam, and we had I think it was had been a former Marine sergeant that was now a police officer in Los Angeles. He was there, and we had 3 other Marines that were in the movie. They're interspersed in the movie, one with each rifle squad. And they were there in case those sergeants needed a little help with probably land navigation, compass reading, that sort of thing. Maybe help the radio guys, a little bit here and there. But they were always there if you needed them. Otherwise, they didn't say anything. They were just part of the platoon. So that was, we were a unit after that. I mean, we really were. We had it all down. But it was tough.
Anton. Yeah.
Hello again. I'm Bart from Belgium. Mr. Berenger, after Platoon, you worked on another action-based movie with the legendary actor Sidney Poitier named Shoot to Kill.
Yes.
I can imagine that was also a tough shoot in the mountains. Can you tell something about that movie?
Well, yeah, I already have a bit of that. Most of it was in the mountains, but then there are scenes that are in the city. And when we're in the mountains, I'm the expert. I'm the leader.
Yeah, I know.
And then in the city, he's the expert and leader, and I'm like a duck out of water. But I think it was kind of the comedy humor part of it.
But the making with the director Roger Spottiswoode, how was that? Was it fun? Was it a tough shoot?
It was a great shoot. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Except one part where I'm in the river and I find all the bodies, and I came out of there and the Canadians looked at me and went, "Whoa, get him in the trailer, get in there." And my driver took a knife and cut my boots off and started massaging my feet, because it was beginning to lose feeling. That water's cold up there in those mountains in Canada.
I can imagine.
It's cold in April, it's freezing.
Thank you.
Not a question, but a comment about the same film. I really enjoyed one moment in that film when you were hiding behind the tree in the middle of the city. And you were trying to hide behind one pine tree branch. I just thought it was the perfect moment in that movie. I don't know if you remember what I'm talking about.
I don't, but it probably because I go, well, there's a tree. I'm more comfortable with a tree than a building in the city. So maybe that's where I decided to hide.
So you worked with the German movie maker Wolfgang Petersen. How was that?
That was fabulous. And actually, I got a call, like my agent said, listen, Clint Eastwood wants to call you. I go, what? What for? He said, he might be working with Wolfgang Petersen, which he did. He ended up doing a great part as a Secret Service agent protecting the president. Great, might be his best movie, but or at least maybe number 2. And so he asked me, and I said, first, okay, he takes the actors into the trailer, he rehearses the scene maybe twice, then you go on the set, while the crew's working, then you go on the set, and he has all the crew leave, and he has only the cinematographer for lighting, the sound boom operator, and the prop guy in case you need a prop during the scene. And that's it, just those 3. You rehearse the scene there, get all the, marks, this and that location. Then he brings the crew in. They bring the crew in, they set up. Then he has you run the scene, and he'll watch that on the television just for composition. Then you do the scene, and he sits by the camera, and I said, Clint, you remember the old days when they didn't have the television monitor to watch it? He goes, oh yeah. I said, well, like the old days, he'll sit right by the camera and watch you. I said, which I like, because that's the way it started. And he goes, I hear you, that's great. And I said, and he's very organized and fully prepared before you even begin the movie. He says, that sounds fantastic. I said, you're going to love him. Go out to dinner with he and his wife. He's one of the funniest guys I ever worked with. And I asked Wolfgang, I said, Wolfgang, I go, were you ever like an actor or a comedian? He said, I was in the theater. And I go, were you good? And he said, I was really good at comedy, but I couldn't do the tragedy, the drama stuff. I went, really? He goes, yeah. So I said, this is not for me. But we had a great time. It was like constant jokes. Everything went on time. It was a big movie, big production, and it just went so smooth. And then that was the first time I came to Germany, because it was a studio film. The studio put up half the money, and then the German, I don't know if the German banks or businessmen put up the other half. So after the film had come out in the States, he said, they're going to do like premieres over in Germany. He said, would you come over? I go, yeah, are you going to be there? He said, sure, of course. So we had a great time, and we were like 3 days in Munich. I met Jürgen Prokopp, the commander of the boat, the captain of the boat, and he and his wife were just totally gracious, very nice, and I mean, he's I think a really fine actor. So that was a big treat for me. Went over to Munich Studios, done several things, and then we did 3 days in Berlin, and then 3 days in Hamburg, which is where Wolfgang's from, and then I went home. So that was my first trip to Germany. This is my second.
Das ist zweite.
Noch jemand eine Frage von euch? Nein. So you played in Platoon. You got a Golden Globe, I think, for it?
Yeah, I got nominated for Academy Award, and I got a Golden Globe for that.
Would you like to tell us something more about the filming of the movie?
About the filming? Well, the hardest part was the training part, because of lack of sleep, and just, I mean, we were just whipped by the time we started. We were very cranky, like soldiers, and lack of sleep. And also, without anybody saying anything, we wouldn't talk to the crew. Because the crew had been in Manila, they were in air-conditioned hotels with showers and clean sheets, and going out to the Japanese restaurants, and and eating good food, and we hated them. And I don't think any of us. This was never, a conspiracy, but none of us would talk to the crew. We were all the same, and and it occurred to me that you know, like military and police sometimes are very xenophobic. They're like, they don't understand what we do. They're not there doing it. We're protecting them, you know, and they just don't understand. They don't understand. Wanted to say probably every war in history when the men came home, they wouldn't talk to their wives or kids about it. It just wasn't appropriate. And they didn't want to know about it. I know my dad did, like, the only time he'd ever talk about it if it was a funny story that happened before he went to the Philippines. So that's just normal. It's like human nature, I think. And we were kind of the same way, but after a week, we started getting to know the crew and learning their names and talking to them. The strangest thing is that pretty much through the whole movie, we never used anybody, and the training, of course, we never used anybody's real name. I mean, with 10 weeks, or 12, 13 with the training stuff, we never called anybody by their real name. It was always their name in the movie or their rank. Even after the movie, it was going on for a while. I was getting phone calls from my radio operator, from Sergeant O'Neill, from Lieutenant Wolf, from Charlie Sheen, you know, and everybody was really strange. They were having post-traumatic stress syndrome. Girlfriends had broken up while they were over there. Kind of like real life, real war. They were having a hard time to adjust. And I do remember telling them once, I said, now you, because there were some very young guys. They were 18, 19, 20 years old, that sort of thing. And I said, I guarantee you that you guys, after this movie, you will not be able to go in and do those teenage movies that are becoming so popular now. Because that was the beginning of teenage movies. And I said, you're going to go in there and you're going to go, well, this ain't Platoon. And I said, I said, because you grow up real quick doing this. And I said, I had friends that came back from Vietnam and they'd go to college for about a year and they go, I can't take this. They just couldn't adjust to that civilian life and silliness, I guess, in their eyes. And they was the same way with them as actors. They were walking out of auditions and getting nasty with casting directors. And I totally understood that. And I warned them about it. Yeah.
I think we have one more question.
Mr. Berenger, first I want to say that you're an icon for my generation. Everyone I knew loves the Major League movies, and you did one of my all-time favorite movies, The Chasers. And my question is Charlie Sheen really the crazy guy like he is today, or?
No. He was, he's always been funny, but in a very quiet way, you know, like he'd be in a group and he'd say something very quiet and I'd hear him. And he was like, occasionally would ask me questions because I had much more experience than he did. So he kind of looked up to me as a more experienced actor, and he would watch me, study me and stuff. So I thought that was a good thing because I would always ask older actors questions about stuff, and if you ask them, they'll help you. They'll teach you a little bit, even on the job. So I like that about him, and then Major League, he started getting a little wilder. And then Major League 2, I went, whoa, we got some problems here. and he's a little bit of a troubled soul now. He's still nice. I mean, you know, he's fun, he's funny, but I think he's a little dissipated right now.
I believe our time is up. Danke an Tom Berenger. Thank you for being